stars Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman, Bob Hoskins, Dante Bosco, Julia Roberts, and a whole bunch of other people I'm not going to bother naming. It's a Steven Spielberg movie about how Peter Pan, for some reason, left Neverland at some point, and he became an adult. He grew up because he went back to the real world. We don't know why this happened yet in the movie, but we know that he's older, and he's got a family, and he has kids, and he's played by Robin Williams, and he's someone that's very obsessed with his job. He's a lawyer, he's very stuck up, and he's just a very unpleasant person who's not very happy. And he's never there for his children. He's a very absent father, so his children usually don't like him that much because he's never there for them. He's always grumpy and unhappy. And he's completely forgotten about being Peter Pan in Neverland. He's forgot all about his adventures as a kid in this magical world. So Captain Hook ends up capturing his children, and then he's forced to go back to Neverland, and they try to get him to remember who he is. And this movie is about him figuring out his identity. Welcome back to my Steven Spielberg series leading up to BFG, guys. We already covered Duel and Jaws, and now it's time to cover Hook. There is a plane going by, but I don't care, I'm going to keep talking. Hook is a movie that was made in the 80s, and a lot of people panned this movie when it came out. A lot of critics really hated this movie either. It was really panned. But that doesn't stop the fact that the movie has 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is absolutely outrageous because I love Hook. This movie is probably in my, I'd say, probably not the top 5, but in the 6 through 10 of my Steven Spielberg movies, because Hook is incredible. I love this movie. A lot of people really do hate Hook, and I actually love it, and I'm really excited to talk about it because it's such a good movie in my opinion anyway. Let's start off with all the characters that are in the movie. Robin Williams as Peter Pan is possibly the best performance I've seen from Robin Williams. I don't know for sure about that, but out of the performances I have seen, I think this might be my favorite. I haven't seen Good Will Hunting, I still need to watch that, but Robin Williams in this movie, absolutely incredible. His character goes through such a transformation as the movie goes on. Like, his character is literally just stuck up and grumpy all the time, and he doesn't remember being Peter Pan, and the whole movie progresses to him basically becoming a kid again and realizing who he is. His character goes through such a transformation, and he becomes a better person as well as the movie goes on because he's never there for his children, and he's like the worst father in the history of fathers. But he is so good in this movie. The guy made me have several tears come in my eyes when I was watching this movie because Robin Williams nails this performance. He nails being an older Peter Pan. A lot more characters as well, like Dustin Hoffman as Hook. Incredible. I could not have thought of a better casting choice than Dustin Hoffman as Hook. He's so perfect as this role. His voice works so well. He's very menacing. He's really freaky at times. And I absolutely love the aspect of his character where he really misses war. He really misses battle and war. He really likes doing war and stuff, and for a while Peter Pan hasn't been there, so not a lot of stuff has happened in Neverland, and the guy is depressed and he wants to kill himself. There's literally an entire scene of him debating whether he should shoot his brains out.
Don't try to stop me this time, Smee. Don't try to stop me this time, Smee. Don't you dare try to stop me this time, Smee. Try to stop me. Smee, you better get up off your ass. Get over here, Smee.
Dustin Hoffman is probably the best interpretation of Captain Hook I've ever seen. Because, like, the cartoon was fantastic. He's an iconic Disney villain. But Dustin Hoffman added even more layers to Captain Hook. He added layers to a character that was basically just played for comedy in the cartoon. And I also love Dante Bosco as Rufio! 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 Rufio is so good. I heard that every kid back in the 80s wanted to be Rufio. And Rufio is so good. Dante Bosco is awesomeness, especially because he later on, after this movie, played one of my favorite villains of all time, Prince Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Dante Bosco is awesomeness as Rufio. I absolutely love the character. I love the banter he has between Peter, because he basically replaced Peter Pan when he left as the leader of the Lost Boys. Rufio is so good, not to mention all the other Lost Boys. The Lost Boys are incredible. They're one of the best parts of this movie. I also thought the kids did a pretty good job, surprisingly, because usually kid actors aren't very good. But in this movie, they actually did a pretty good job. I liked the two kids in this movie. Maggie Smith is really good as an older Wendy, and she has a bunch of makeup, and it's some of the best makeup I've ever seen. Maggie Smith is about that old now, as she was depicted in this movie, but back then she was a lot younger, and they used a lot of makeup, and like, she was way younger than she actually looked in that movie, and the makeup was so good, especially for a movie that came out in the 80s, and there's planes again. There's also Bob Hoskins as Smee, who does a great job. Him and Hook have like this really cool banter, and that's done very well. Like, just the relationship between Hook and Smee is really embodied in this movie. There's a lot of other smaller characters that I don't really need to get into, but then there's also Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell, which is easily my least favorite part of this entire movie. Tinkerbell is really annoying in my opinion. Like, it almost seems like she could have been completely cut out of this movie, and there would be no difference. Like, just Tinkerbell didn't need to be there at all, because most of the time she's just like sitting on the sidelines just watching Peter Pan try to train and remember who he is, and she's just like on the sidelines just laughing and being stupid. I did not like Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell. I also really need to mention the beginning of this movie. I love it. I love so many scenes in the beginning, like maybe 30 minutes of the movie, like especially when Peter Pan walks up to the very room that he took Wendy out of and brought her to Neverland. He walks into that room, and it gave me so much chills, that scene. And I love the scene where Wendy is talking to the children, and she's talking about how J.M. Barrie, who's actually the author of the play, the original Peter Pan play in the first place, but in this movie, Wendy is a child, and she tells J.M. Barrie about these adventures that she went on, and he writes a book about it. It's genius! That's so clever! I just love how genius the plot is. Like, the plot is the best thing ever. Like, what if Peter Pan went back to the real world and grew up? What would happen? And that's what this movie answers, and it's such a genius plot. And I love the scene where, like, Peter Pan, obviously he's not a very good person anymore, and he's getting drunk. He's literally hammered in this scene, and he's kind of going crazy. And he's getting really wasted in the bedroom, and then Tinkerbell literally comes in right when he's drunk. So he's basically going crazy, and he delivers one of the best lines in the movie where he's like, "Firefly from hell." It's so funny because Robin Williams plays the scene so brilliantly. He thinks he's having a psychotic breakdown in this moment because he sees this fairy, and she's like, "Oh, you gotta believe in fairies." And he's like, "I don't believe in fairies!" There's also some really weird cameos in the beginning. Like, what's his face? Phil Collins shows up, a really good singer. He just shows up for no reason. He has no relevance to the movie, but he just has a cameo as a cop investigating the incident that happened with the kids. And also throughout this movie, there are several scenes that made me tear up. Particularly one of the scenes where it's like, there's this little boy who walks up to Peter Pan, and he's like looking at his face, and he's like,
"Oh, there you are, Peter."
All the Lost Boys are like, "Yay, it's Peter Pan!" And it's playing this really touching music piece. John Williams' score for this movie was incredible. It's a really underrated score. It should be mentioned a lot more. And that moment was really touching. And I absolutely love the scene with the dinner table. Like, it's so random. Like, they just there's no food there, but they have to imagine it's there. It's so random and weird. And like, once they imagine it there, they start like throwing food at each other, and it's really random. And then there's the scene where Rufio and Peter Pan start insulting each other, and like Rufio's saying a bunch of really immature things like snot breath and fart breath or something. He says a bunch of really childish insults like that, and then Peter Pan's saying a bunch of weird stuff like nearsighted gynecologist.
Substitute chemistry teacher.
Come on, Rufio, hit him back.
Mong tongue,
Math tutor.
pinhead,
Prison barber.
mother lover,
Nearsighted gynecologist.
in your face, camel cake.
In your rear, cow derriere.
Some of the things throughout the movie that Williams says, it's like when you're a kid, you're kind of like, huh? But then when you're an adult, you're like, that's amazing, because he has a lot of adult jokes throughout the movie that only adults would get, and it's hilarious. It's so good. Robin Williams is hilarious in this movie. Just basically everything involving the Lost Boys is so much fun. Like them training him, and like training him to remember he's Peter Pan and try to get him to fly, and just training him to fight Captain Hook and save his children. It's so much fun. You reach down and touch toes. You reach down and touch toes. How long since you've looked at those? How long since you've looked at those? But by far the absolute best aspect of the entirety of Hook is just the transformation that Peter Pan goes through. I mean, just him being a stubborn man who he's not very happy and he's not there for his children, to being basically a kid again is easily the best part of the entire movie. And I absolutely love the moment where he's inside of the treehouse that was his old home that Hook destroyed in the cartoon. He went back to that home and he's starting to remember things, and he's just remembering everything, and he's flying again, and he starts telling Tink about his memories. He remembers how he kept going back to Wendy, and eventually she grew up and became old, and it's really sad and heartbreaking stuff. There was another moment in this movie where I started tearing up a lot, and they revealed that he actually fell in love with Wendy's granddaughter, and that's why he stayed in Neverland. Just the fact that the whole movie unravels as it goes along, like there's more stuff that's answered and makes more sense as the movie happens, honestly was a really good aspect of the movie. And I absolutely love the moment where he's finally flying around and admitting he's Peter Pan again, and like, Rufio gives him the sword and he's like, "You are the Pan." And then he's like,
You can fly, you can fight, and you can
which is one of my favorite lines in the movie. That's so good! But that whole sequence of him being happy and flying around and being a kid again is immediately ruined by a very out-of-left scene where Tinkerbell just turns big and talks about how she wants to be with Peter Pan and how she wants to love him and stuff. And it's just like, who cares? No one cares. Well, why is this here? It felt so out of place. It was so awkward. Even as a kid, I hated that scene. I was just like, what the heck? But luckily that doesn't last for very long, because shortly after he finally goes and fights Captain Hook, and they have a sword battle, and it's so much fun. And then there's like, the Lost Boys also fight the pirates in this scene. It's like a big all-out battle. And then the I love the part where like Tubby Ted like gets rolled into a ball, and then he rolls over and knocks a bunch of pirates down. That is great stuff. It's so much fun. Just the whole end fight scene is so great. And Rufio's death, really sad, and it's handled perfectly. Like, he's like, "I wish I had a dad like you," to Peter Pan. It's really sad. And then you can see Peter Pan's anger as he's looking back at Captain Hook. He wants to get back at him for all the stuff that Hook has done to him. But there are also things towards the end that were really weird plot holes. Like, I felt like the scene was really weird where he obviously killed the crocodile, and then the crocodile just falls over because he's like part of this stand thing, and he just falls over and swallows Hook whole? That was very strange, and I don't really get it, because it's like, is the croc still alive? Because the croc growls afterwards and he burps. So is it implying that he didn't really kill the crocodile? I never understood that scene, even as a kid, and it's like Hook just dies in the weirdest way. And the other plot hole that didn't really make any sense was like when Peter Pan finally leaves Neverland, with a very touching moment with the Lost Boys. All that was very touching and very well done. But after he goes back to the real world, Smee's there, sweeping the street. It was like, does each person from Neverland have mirror images of them in the real world? Or did Smee actually go to the real world after Hook died? I was like, what? Why is that there? But then when Peter Pan's really happy and he's doing very well, like he climbs up that drain pipe, which is really weird and crazy. But he like, just the scene with him with his family, just like that whole ending scene was so touching. I was like, I felt really happy inside when I saw that ending. It was a really good moment. So yeah, Hook is a movie that does have problems. Like, there are dumb things about Hook. Like I mentioned, the Shmi thing was really weird, and the fact that the crocodile swallowed Hook whole, and Tinkerbell herself is awful in this movie, in my opinion. But, for me, there's so many things that Hook does right, and the things that are done wrong can be overlooked because of how right they got other things. Like, there's so much great things about Hook is what I'm trying to say, and they outweigh the flaws by far. So, overall, I think I'm going to be really generous, even, and give Hook an A. I love this movie. I'm sorry about all the people who hate it. I love Hook, and I don't understand why people don't like it. It's a really good movie. I honestly felt euphoric when this movie was done. I felt really happy, because it's such a good movie, and it's such an enjoyable time. So guys, I hope you like my Steven Spielberg so far. This weekend I'm probably going to have a review for Independence Day Resurgence, possibly The Shallows. I'm also going to have a review for The Last Airbender for my 100 subscribers special. And my next video is either going to be Catch Me If You Can or Minority Report. I'm probably going to review both of them, but whichever... I don't remember which one came first because they both came in the same year. So whichever one came out first, I'm going to do. Yes. But I really hope you've been liking this series because I've been liking it. I've been having a lot of fun. And yeah, Steven Spielberg. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And be sure to comment what you thought of Hook. Because I really hope there's other people that watch me that like this movie. Because I love it. Okay guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.